When I found out that Ethan West had moved the girl he was sponsoring from the front desk to his side as his assistant, my heart gave a sudden, inexplicable jolt. A woman's intuition told me this wouldn't be so simple. Ethan had always kept strict professional boundaries, and I could only hope he would hold his line. After all, no matter how perfect a man seems, if he's tainted, I don't want him. When Ethan walked in with that young girl holding onto his arm, the people around me reacted in all kinds of ways. Those close to me had worry and pity in their eyes, while the ones who weren't so close looked on with open curiosity and thinly veiled schadenfreude. I smoothed away my smile, nodded to everyone, and offered a brief apology before stepping aside. I hadn't gone far when the whispers rose behind me. Wasn't Mr. West supposed to be madly in love with his wife, Rachel Grant? Weren't they the model couple? Maybe all that devotion is just for show. How much love can there really be in a high society marriage? This is humiliating. Rachel just arrived alone, and Mr. West shows up with his mistress on his arm. He won't even give her that bit of dignity. What's the point of this alliance, then? Another voice countered, "Enough. Don't jump to conclusions. You people just can't stand to see a couple actually in love. Calling the girl a mistress right away? Maybe there's another reason." Someone hushed them, and the chatter faded, but silence didn't mean the matter was finished. If anything, it only stirred up more speculation. I took a glass of red wine from a passing server. Just last night, this same man had video called me, angrily complaining that my business trip was dragging on too long, and tonight he was letting another woman cling to his arm at a banquet. The moment Ethan saw me, his eyes lit up. He broke off his conversation and headed straight toward me, but a startled little cry stopped him and drew my gaze back. The girl stumbled and fell into his arms. Her clear eyes flashed with panic as she whispered, "Ethan, my foot hurts." She looked so pure yet fragile that it easily tugged at anyone's protective instinct. I stopped and smiled faintly as I watched them. Ethan immediately set her upright and then strode toward me. "Rachel, you're back early. Why didn't you tell me?" He's usually calm and restrained in public, but his feelings slipped through in that moment. He pulled me gently into his arms and pressed a kiss to my forehead, murmuring, "I've missed you so much." A number of the sidelong stares faded away. I lowered my gaze and swirled the wine in my glass. My parents had something come up, so I came on behalf of the Grant family to discuss a deal. "I only arrived this afternoon," I said, pulling his arm off me. "Until I understood what was going on, the whole situation left me unsettled. It was all a rush. Since you said last night that you'd be here too, I didn't bother telling you in advance." Ethan glanced at his now empty arm, confusion flickering across his face. After 3 years of marriage, he knows this is a sign that I'm angry. Unfortunately, while he understands, someone else doesn't. The young, pretty girl stepped up and gave Ethan a sweet smile. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice sweet as sugar, and with her dimples showing she looked like a ripe peach, fresh and tempting. The way she addressed him made me lift a brow. "Since when did you get a sister I've never met?" I asked, my tone edged with irony. Ethan forced a small laugh. "This is Crystal White, the girl I sponsor. She used to be at the front desk, and now she's my assistant." My heart gave another sharp thump. From receptionist to executive assistant, calling that a meteoric rise wouldn't be an exaggeration. Just then, someone came over to speak with Ethan, and he stepped a few paces aside. Crystal immediately extended her hand toward me. "Hello, sister-in-law. Please take care of me from now on." I glanced at her outstretched hand, but didn't take it. My intuition told me again, this wasn't simple. From her behavior to her choice of words, all of it made me uncomfortable. "Assistant White, I'm more used to people calling me Ms. Grant. Of course, Mrs. West works too. And next time you accompany my husband to an event like this, please remember to keep an appropriate social distance. After all, you're not actually his sister." Maybe my tone was too cold, or maybe my words too firm, but Crystal's smile froze. The poise she'd shown moments ago vanished, and she hurriedly explained, her voice flustered. "I'm sorry, sister-in-law, Miss Grant. I didn't mean to hold on to Ethan's arm. It's just that I twisted my ankle when I got out of the car. That's why I had to hold on to Ethan's arm. Please don't misunderstand us," Crystal White said softly. "Please don't misunderstand us." My eyes swept over her girlish Mary Jane shoes and finally lingered on her pale, slender ankle. Whether her story was true or not didn't matter. What angered me was Ethan's attitude. It was he who allowed her to cross the line. When Ethan came back, Crystal's eyes instantly reddened. She stepped forward and apologized. "Ethan, I'm sorry. You originally wanted to bring me here to broaden my horizons, but I've been such a disappointment, hurting my foot. I didn't know Miss Grant minded me being by your side. I'll just sit alone in the corner and rest. Once the event is over, we can go back together." Ethan didn't notice anything wrong. He glanced at me and quietly asked my opinion. I gave a small nod, and he told her, "No need to wait for us. I'll have the driver take you home first." Crystal froze. "Ethan?" she whispered, clearly unsettled by his arrangement. But what grated on me even more was the way she kept calling him Ethan in that cloying tone. "Just call him Mr. West," I said flatly. "Otherwise it feels awkward to me, like I've suddenly gained a little sister I never knew." Crystal looked at me, then back at Ethan. Finally, she bit her lip and said hesitantly, "But I've always called him that in private. Changing now feels so unnatural." My heart sank instantly. After 3 years of marriage, I thought I knew Ethan well. He came from privilege, rose quickly at a young age, and to establish authority, he always carried himself as aloof and restrained. At work, he was even more strict about boundaries. Yet now he was breaking his own principles over an assistant. Even someone as slow to catch on as Ethan could feel the tension rising between us. Seeing the hopeful look in Crystal's eyes, his brows drew together slightly before he finally said in a detached voice, "You're right, it's not appropriate. From today, change the way you address me." The words had barely left his mouth when Crystal's tears fell one by one onto the floor. She forced a shaky nod. "Yes, Mr. West." Her voice trembled with sobs and grievance. I couldn't help but wonder. Ethan's assistants had always been sharp and capable. How had he suddenly gotten used to someone so fragile and pitiful? So when Crystal left, I asked him directly. He only smiled indulgently, brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead. "She's the little girl I sponsored one-on-one at the orphanage years ago. Our relationship is different. She just graduated. She's still young. And Rachel, don't label people so easily. White Lotus isn't a very kind term." I rolled my eyes, ungraceful on purpose. "What's wrong with you today? Why are you so quick to defend her? Isn't absence supposed to make the heart grow fonder? I don't see you looking very happy to see me." I had been provoked by a woman with hidden motives and managed to hold back my anger. That was already more than enough restraint, but I didn't bother to explain that to him. "This is the first time you've let another woman hold your hand," I said coldly. "I don't want there to be a second." Ethan chuckled. "So you're jealous? Don't worry, today was an exception. What I have with her is nothing more than a pure working relationship." He knew I wasn't happy. He probably thought I was overreacting, but he never criticized me outright. That was the unspoken rule between us. We don't argue in public. Whatever issues we have, we resolve them at home. From the outside, our marriage looked like an alliance between two powerful families. But in truth, Ethan and I had fallen in love freely. From the moment we first met, we were drawn to each other, and after 2 sweet years together, we walked into marriage hand in hand. Friends used to tease that Ethan was calm while I was bold, saying we balanced each other perfectly, a match made in heaven. And it was true that after 3 years of marriage, we were still as sweet as when we first fell in love, rarely ever quarreling. So even I hadn't expected that the first real storm in our marriage would quietly gather and finally break without warning. I thought my behavior at the banquet had been enough to make my attitude clear, enough to warn Crystal White to back off. But when the car door opened and I saw her sweet, smiling face inside, all the anger I had been suppressing surged out uncontrollably. I was the only daughter of the Grant family, Ethan's wife. If someone insisted on ignoring the respect I offered, why should I keep up appearances for her sake? I stepped back to stand behind Ethan. "Let me explain this once. Ethan, if you're tired of our marriage, you can just say it. We can separate with dignity. You don't need to spend the whole evening deliberately humiliating me." Crystal froze at my words, then hurriedly tried to get out of the car to explain. "Miss Grant, please don't misunderstand. I only stayed because I thought if the driver took me home first and then came back for Mr. West, it would waste too much time. She limped forward, her face showing grievance, yet not daring to speak too boldly. I figured Mr. West would have to entertain tonight, and if he drank too much, I could take care of him. I've done it before, so I know how. Miss Grant, I really meant well, please don't take it the wrong way. Crystal's voice wasn't low, and I could feel people's gazes flickering toward us. Standing in front of me with her arms loosely crossed, the color drained from her rosy face. I could clearly see the look of pity in Ethan's eyes. Rachel, you're overreacting, he said quietly. Crystal is only my assistant, and what she's doing is part of her job. There's nothing between us. I narrowed my eyes and gave a sharp laugh. Do you think I'm stupid, Ethan? What employee would rather stay late instead of going home early? She's been your assistant for just over a month, but I've been your wife for 3 years. Who do you think knows better how to take care of you? And tell me, does a normal subordinate sit in your private seat waiting for you, instead of getting out of the car before you even open the door? In all the years I'd known him, I had never spoken to Ethan so harshly. And to him, it must have seemed like such a trivial matter. He pulled me gently into his arms and whispered, I'm sorry, it's my fault. If you don't like her, then I won't bring her to social events anymore. She's just a recent college graduate, new to the working world. Why bother letting her get under your skin? The joy of reuniting after being apart had quietly dissolved the moment Crystal appeared. Now even the last shred of warmth I held was gone, and the dignity I had been preserving for Ethan ended there. Crystal, sit in the passenger seat, Ethan ordered softly. Then to me, let's go, Rachel. It's been a long day, let's go home and rest. But despite all he said, my feet didn't move. For so many years, outstanding as he was, Ethan had never once given a girl who liked him any opportunity. This was the first time, and for the first time, because of another woman, he made me feel miserable. But he underestimated me. I was not some delicate flower clinging to him for survival. I was Rachel Grant, the proud daughter of my family. Anyone who truly cared about me wouldn't make me feel this way, and anyone who didn't, I had no reason to make life easy for them. That had always been my motto. So I quietly pushed Ethan away. You two go ahead. If I stay, I'm afraid I'll be sick to my stomach. Crystal gave a soft little sniffle, as if she were the most wronged woman in the world. That night she made me realize just how true the saying was, women are made of water. Ethan's patience finally reached its limit. He stared at me for a long moment, then gave a cold laugh. Fine. You just have to pick a fight with me tonight, don't you? Then do as you wish. Go back on your own. Crystal, let's go. Before getting into the car, Crystal turned her back toward Ethan and gave him the brightest smile she'd shown all evening since I arrived, but she didn't dare sit by his side in front of me. Instead, she slipped into the passenger seat. I stood there watching as the car drove off into the night. I let out a slow, steady breath. It seemed this marriage was heading toward its end. On the ride home, my phone rang. I stared at the screen for a moment, but in the end didn't answer. The ringing stopped, but then came a string of WeChat notifications. Where are you? Why can't I see you? I told Crystal to go back on her own. I came back to pick you up. Rachel, even if you're upset, there's a limit. Answer me. So he had cooled down, finally realizing he'd gone too far. I switched my phone to silent and closed my eyes. That night, Ethan and I fell into a cold war, just as I had expected. Some people usually hold very firm boundaries, but once they let someone step across, in their heart, they've already accepted that person as one of their own. Ethan already knew Crystal White. He had sponsored her for years, and she was trying with all her might to root herself in this city. We both knew that West Corporation was not her best choice. The real reason she stayed was Ethan. I could see it in her eyes. Her feelings for him were not just admiration, but gratitude, longing, and worship. So Ethan thought I was the one tainting their so-called pure bond by turning it into something romantic. But he forgot. Love only needs the faintest spark of attraction to take root. And Ethan, being such an exceptional man in every respect, was only fooling himself by pretending his closeness with Crystal was innocent. This was never really a battle between Crystal and me. It was between Ethan and me. And if our marriage was to continue, One of us had to compromise. In the end, Ethan was the one who relented first, inviting me to dinner. When I left for the dinner, Ethan was still in a meeting. I decided to wait in his office. I hadn't been sitting long before people started coming and going. After a while, I sighed, set down my phone, and said, "All right, Zoe, just say it. You and the other girls from the secretary's office have been coming in one after another. What exactly do you all want to ask?" Ethan's secretaries were all young. Unlike Ethan, I wasn't so reserved, and once they got to know me, they weren't as intimidated as they were around him. Zoe grinned and said, "Mrs. West, I'll just ask on behalf of the others, all right? We heard Mr. West's personal assistant is his childhood sweetheart, and their relationship is, well, not entirely ordinary." I couldn't help but laugh. "Childhood sweetheart? You mean Crystal White? Who told you that?" Then it struck me. Come to think of it, I haven't seen her. Doesn't she usually work with you all? "She did," Zoe replied, "but a few days ago she was transferred to planning. And there's a rumor in the company, it's because you didn't want any woman too beautiful working right beside Mr. West." I gave Zoe a deliberate once-over. With her striking looks and elegant figure, I arched a brow and asked, "So do you think you're not a woman, or just not as pretty as she is?" Zoe's gossipy expression vanished. She straightened her back, her whole posture screaming, "I'm the most beautiful woman alive." Then she realized and laughed at herself. "True enough. I've been working at Mr. West's side for over 3 years, and you've never had me transferred. So what was the real reason?" I knew Zoe's personality. She looked every inch the capable career woman, and she really was efficient, but she also loved gossip. If I didn't satisfy her curiosity, she'd probably find excuses to come in 10 more times today. First of all, Crystal was just a student Mr. West sponsored. Second, she was transferred because she let certain thoughts cross her mind that she shouldn't have. I paused, then added, "You're smart. You know how to read between the lines. That's enough." Zoe nodded quickly. "Got it. Thank you, Mrs. West, for clearing things up. Don't worry, if there's any new development, I'll make sure you're the first to know." I shook my head with a laugh. Zoe loved to play the clown sometimes. I honestly didn't know how Ethan had tolerated her chatter for so long. Dinner that night went smoothly. Ethan made his position clear, and I understood it. In turn, I had to respond, and I decided to let the matter go for now. After all, Ethan hadn't actually cheated. I chose to give him another chance. But there were things that needed to be said, things that had to be made clear. "Ethan, I love you," I said softly. The hand holding his wine glass paused midair. He clearly hadn't expected me to say that so suddenly. But the premise of true love is that you love me too. Whether it's emotional or physical, the moment you cross that line, the only option left for us is divorce. Ethan sighed helplessly. "I won't, Rachel. I only feel sympathy for her." All I wanted was for Ethan to hold to his boundaries. After all, no matter how perfect a man may seem, if he is sullied, I won't want him anymore. Life between Ethan and me returned to normal, but for Crystal White, things became difficult. A person who doesn't have her heart in her work can't possibly show any ability. Back when she was in the secretary's office, though her title was assistant, all she handled were Ethan's personal matters. If she made a mistake, her colleagues would cover for her, or she would shed a few tears in front of Ethan and get away with it. But the planning department's work was complicated and tedious. With her unsettled mind and resentment, she messed up several tasks assigned by her supervisors. At first, everyone thought she was a relative of Mr. West's, so they tried to look after her. But once Zoe uncovered the truth for me, everyone suddenly realized they'd been fooled. These were all updates Zoe reported to me, but honestly, I didn't care. In my eyes, that was already in the past, and I had let it go. What mattered to me was never Crystal herself, but Ethan's attitude. The real turning point came on my birthday. I had thought that the storm stirred up by Crystal was already over. Later, I realized it had only been the rumbling of thunder before the downpour. And when the storm truly struck, it caught me completely off guard. By tradition, I always spent my birthday with close friends, gathering at a bar to celebrate. While I was still accepting their blessings, the sound of shouting broke out. Someone rushed over to tell me that Ethan was going crazy, fighting someone. For a moment, I thought they must have been mistaken. Ethan, the man who would only frown and fall silent even when he was displeased, losing control and hitting someone. When I reached him, Ethan was draping his coat over Crystal White with one arm. The lively bar had fallen utterly silent. Only the faint sound of Crystal's sobs could be heard. From the bar manager's apologetic explanation, I pieced together what had happened. Crystal had found out that Ethan was there that night. The staff refused to tell her which private room we were in, so she followed a strange man into a high-end suite. She had nearly been taken advantage of when Ethan walked in. One man, neatly dressed, the other, disheveled and panicked. Days of pent-up grievance burst out all at once as Crystal clung to Ethan and wept hysterically. Once she had been able to hold his arm and attend banquets. Now even seeing him had become a struggle. That kind of plunge in just 1 month was more than she could bear. If her earlier weakness and grievance had been partly an act, tonight it was raw and real. Through her tears she choked. "Ethan, Dodo is dying. I can't reach you. At the company, Secretary Zoe and the others block me. My colleagues isolate me, and now even Dodo is leaving me." When Ethan heard that, he turned toward me, and I saw the open disgust in my eyes reflected in his. His hand around Crystal's shoulders tightened as he raised his voice before all of our gathered friends. "Rachel, she is just a helpless girl. Just because I've cared for her a little more, you would wound her like this? I respected you, loved you, so I've given in again and again, but you still play these petty tricks in secret. Do you take some kind of pride in this?" It was the first time Ethan had ever lashed out at me. So the man who had always been cold and aloof could also lose control, grow furious, and shout, "Rachel, if you can't open your heart, then our marriage has no reason to continue. I will not stand by and watch you turn into someone who only bullies the weak while sitting on a high horse." From beginning to end, I didn't say a single word. What could I say? That Secretary Zoe blocked her out of duty, not because of my orders? That Ethan had deleted Crystal's contact information on his own, not at my urging? Or that I hadn't known Crystal would come tonight, and whatever harm she suffered had nothing to do with me? No. I didn't want to speak. All I knew was that on my birthday, my husband was holding another woman in his arms, and in front of our mutual friends, he scolded me without even trying to sort out right from wrong. The feeling was unbearable, like countless fine needles stabbing into my heart, like endless rain pressing down until I couldn't breathe. Ethan didn't come home that night. The next day, word spread through the company that he had exploded in anger for Crystal White's sake and used it as an excuse to rectify the office. He declared to everyone that in his company there must only be mutual support, that bullying would never be tolerated, and that deception or insubordination would be punished severely. He demanded that Zoe, the chief secretary, apologize publicly. Zoe refused. "I did nothing wrong. I followed company procedure. If Mr. West insists that I'm at fault, then my only mistake was failing to realize how important Miss White is in his heart. If even Mrs. West had to endure Mr. West's fury last night, then what right would a lowly employee like me have to complain? Mr. West, I resign." Ethan didn't try to persuade her to stay. On the spot, he approved her resignation and at the same time promoted Crystal White to chief assistant, directly replacing Zoe. Overnight, the entire secretary's office was gripped with fear. I felt guilty and reached out to Zoe, extending an olive branch. But she only smiled freely and said, "With a leader who can't distinguish right from wrong, this company will collapse sooner or later. I'll just take this as leaving early. It gives me time to rest." I admired her attitude and promised that if she ever wished, the Grant Group would always welcome her. After that, Ethan and I began living apart. To be precise, he was the one who moved out. He didn't ask for a divorce, and neither did I, but the anger between us never faded. He knew exactly how to hurt me most, cutting not just the flesh, but the heart. So he held a grand funeral for Crystal White's dog, Dodo, making sure everyone noticed. He was never a dog lover. But since he had given her that pet in the first place, he used it as a reason. He took her to private charity galas, bought her a necklace worth millions just because she said she liked it, and fastened it around her neck himself. They attended industry summits together, worked late into the night together. One photo even surfaced, taken from a high rise, where the edge of a man's suited figure could just be seen in the corner, captioned, You work hard for your dreams. I'll watch over you among the city's lights. And there I was, alone in our once shared home, scrolling through Crystal's social media posts. Her pinned post showed a pink Dior haute couture gown with the words, "My CEO brother always says my past was too bitter, so he'll raise me all over again, so that from now on my life will be only joy, no grudges." The post drew countless envious and jealous comments. Friends forwarded me screenshots of her posts on Moments as well. After all, she was now Mr. West's chief assistant, and she had added many contacts who knew both Ethan and me. Everyone was curious. How could I lose to someone so obviously manipulative, flaunting her ambiguous charm? But in truth, there was no such thing as winning or losing. Love lasts only a moment. People's hearts change so easily. Casually, I sent the screenshots in Crystal's account to our PR department, instructing them to prepare a strategy. Ethan's favoritism toward Crystal was blatant, and she flaunted it as if desperate for the world to know. Naturally, the media swarmed. Scandals of the wealthy always attracted the most attention, especially since my wedding to Ethan had been dubbed the wedding of the century. Back then, after Ethan's father's scandal of publicly brawling with a mistress, West Corporation's PR department had spun our marriage into a love story to save the family's image. They had crafted Ethan into the perfect, devoted husband. A philandering father, a long-suffering mother, and a wife-loving son. That narrative had earned him hordes of female fans and even pushed the company's stock upward. But now, with that image shattered, curiosity exploded. Even my parents, who never paid attention to entertainment news, called to ask what was happening. I didn't say much. I only asked them, "If I divorce, will you support me?" There was silence on the other end of the line. Then my father's voice came, slow and steady. "Rachel, from childhood we taught you to be independent. Whether you decide to marry or to divorce, as long as it's the result of your own careful thought, you don't need our permission. Because letting you be yourself, that is the greatest love we can give you." In that moment, I suddenly remembered. In the beginning, my parents hadn't been very supportive of my marriage to Ethan. First, they wanted me to marry someone I truly loved, not enter into a political union. Second, the West family's reputation was poor. Generation after generation of men in power had been unfaithful, leaving behind countless illegitimate children. But in the end, my parents compromised because I loved Ethan. I once asked my father, precisely because Ethan's father was never faithful, because Ethan grew up in such an environment, shouldn't he treat love more seriously? He would never let his mother's tragedy happen to his wife. My father only shook his head and chuckled. "Rachel, you don't understand men at all. A man will never truly empathize with his mother, because he is a beneficiary of that system. Ethan's father may have been unfaithful, but he still gave his son everything: love, wealth, and the position of heir. Ethan won't resent his father for his mother's suffering. On the contrary, he may even think his mother was too narrow-minded. That's what family culture is: subtle, unspoken influence from parents." Then my father's tone shifted. "But if it ever comes to that, it's no matter. People feel unwilling only because they've given too much and received too little. Just remember this: when you love, give without reserve. When you stop loving, let go cleanly. That way, no one can hurt you." I nodded. I understood what he meant. Before loving Ethan, I had to love myself more. "Go on then," my father had said. "Run toward your love, build your family. Whatever the outcome, it will be your experience." In the end, he couldn't hold back. He drew me into his arms, his voice firm yet gentle in my ear. "Rachel, you are the only daughter of the Grant family. Remember this: your parents and the Grant family itself will always be your strength." Back then, I thought he was being overly pessimistic about my marriage. Now I see it for what it was: wisdom. He didn't believe in it, but he didn't stop me. He only offered gentle reminders and stood behind me as a shield. That was how I had the courage to marry Ethan for love, and also how I had the strength to walk away without hesitation when love was gone. Public opinion only grew harsher. Resourceful netizens dug into Crystal White's social media, and within a single day the West family dominated 3 headlines in a row. Under such enormous pressure, Ethan finally buckled. This was not what he had expected. His original intention had only been to tame me. But Ethan forgot. I came from the same kind of family as he did, raised with the same kind of education. The only difference was that he was male and I was female. Why did he assume that in the end it would be me who was tamed? Ethan called and asked me to attend a banquet with him, to clear the rumors of his affair. I agreed, but not by attending a banquet. I demanded a press conference instead. Our marriage had begun in grandeur. It should end just as dramatically. On the day of the press conference, Ethan came personally to pick me up. When he opened the passenger door, Crystal was already sitting there, smiling at me. "Hello, sister-in-law. I'll be accompanying you through the whole press conference today. If you have anything to instruct, feel free to tell me." Her words were polite, but she had no intention of getting out of the seat. I glanced at Ethan in the driver's seat. His face was stern, his lips pressed tight. This time, I didn't get angry. I quietly turned and got into the back seat. Crystal's gloating was plain, not even concealed. From time to time she turned back to speak to me, reminding me sweetly and cheerfully of details to watch out for at the conference. The timid, fragile girl she used to be was nowhere to be found. Clearly, Ethan had raised her well these past months. I closed my eyes to rest as soon as I got in, leaving her to grow bored and fall silent. The rest of the ride passed without a word. The press conference was straightforward. The host briefly explained that Ethan was there to clarify his relationship with Crystal White, and to declare publicly that our marriage was strong and unaffected. Next, it should have been my turn to say a few words praising Ethan, reinforcing his image as the perfect husband. But before I could open my mouth, Crystal White suddenly stepped onto the stage, announcing that she had a gift for Ethan. The big screen lit up, playing scenes of their first meeting at the orphanage. Then came their letters to each other, followed by text messages, intercut with moments of Ethan trying to keep her from feeling lonely, like giving her dodo, taking her on a graduation trip, and how she had worked so hard to close the gap between them until she could finally stand by his side. Ethan's eyes grew misty as he watched, while Crystal's tears streamed down her face. At first, everyone assumed it was simply a thank you video, but as it went on, the atmosphere shifted. Whispered murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. "Doesn't this feel more like a love diary than a gratitude video?" "Yeah, makes me wonder, does Ethan really love his wife? Rachel's not stupid. If the two of them were truly innocent, would he need to clear things up like this?" Sensing the mood souring, the host quickly redirected. "I've heard Mrs. West has also prepared a video for Mr. West. Why don't we play it now?" I smiled and nodded. My video wasn't as polished or picturesque as Crystal's. Some parts were even shaky, because most of it had been pieced together from surveillance footage. There were clips of Crystal holding Ethan's arm at a banquet, Ethan leaving me behind in the cold night while he drove off with her, Ethan getting into a fist fight over her, and Ethan holding her protectively while harshly rebuking me. Intercut were posts Crystal herself had uploaded to social media. 2 videos, the same protagonists, 2 entirely different emotions. Love and lack of love, it couldn't have been clearer. Silence fell across the room as the final clip played. Our wedding day 3 years ago. Ethan had held me tightly, confessing at the top of his lungs, "Rachel, I love you. This vow will never change for the rest of my life." I had laughed, teasing him. "And what if it does?" "Impossible," he had said. "Unless I die. Otherwise, I will always love you." That youthful passion had been so intense, so fiery. Now, compared to his recent indifference and coldness, it was nothing short of ironic. Ethan's eyes reddened instantly. He grabbed my hand as if only just remembering his love for me. His voice trembled. "Rachel, I'm sorry. I didn't know how painful it looked from your side. I only wanted you to learn a lesson. I didn't want you to become someone who bullies the weak. Crystal and I truly are innocent. I've never cheated." I pulled my hand free, lifted the microphone and said, "Cheating or not, everyone here can judge for themselves. On my birthday, you abandoned me and left me the laughingstock of our circle. On Mid-Autumn Festival, a night of reunion, you left me alone in an empty house while you took Crystal to your family estate to feel the warmth of home. You did everything with her that couples do, indulged all her public flaunting, and left me humiliated again and again. And now you tell me you didn't know. How could you not know? You just didn't care." No, it's not like that, Ethan stammered, his voice shaking. Rachel, it's just that she always cries because of you. I thought you'd become too strong, too frightening. You know I hate people who bully the weak most of all. I laughed bitterly. You always say I use power to bully others. But when I was the one suffering humiliation, where were you? Who is really bullying whom here? My heart had long been broken, my tears long since dried. Standing face to face with Ethan now, I felt an odd calm. My thoughts were clear, my voice crisp, every word carrying through the hall. I looked at Ethan, so handsome, so flawless in appearance, and felt a wave of disbelief. What a perfect man he seemed to be. But he was tainted. Ethan, I said steadily, let's divorce. Your love was too short, so short that before our life together even began, your love had already ended. With that, I turned to the gathered media and bowed deeply. Thank you all for coming. The crowd seemed to wake from a dream, breaking into thunderous applause. After all, a wife is still a wife, and no one wanted to see the legitimate one endlessly provoked by her husband and his mistress while she swallowed the insults in silence. Only Ethan couldn't accept it. To him, the news came too suddenly. Perhaps he had always believed that my silence on divorce meant I still loved him. How laughable, when in truth, I was only waiting for the right moment. From now on, there would no longer be two families standing side by side, but only one name that would dominate. Over the years, Ethan's image as the devoted husband had brought West Corporation enormous benefits, even leading them to open several product lines aimed at women. And now, I had simply turned that image against them. Why should all the profits go to shameless people? So I let Ethan's affection for Crystal grow cold, watched her flaunting unchecked, guided them into going too far, then used public opinion to turn the tide, landing a final, merciless blow. At the same time, I used the publicity to promote the Grant Group's signature women's line. After this battle, our sales soared. In contrast, West Corporation's stock plummeted, and their female-oriented products struggled miserably. Thanks to the media frenzy, Ethan's father's decades of scandalous behavior was dug up, dozens of illegitimate children exposed. Onlookers shook their heads in unison. As expected, rotten roots yield rotten fruit. Ethan was left scrambling, juggling board meetings while also guarding against his father's illegitimate offspring. After all, they now all had legal rights to inherit, standing as equals. In the past, old Mr. West had suppressed them, but it seemed now he had changed tactics, perhaps even grooming them to fight for shares. Even under such pressure, Ethan still refused to divorce. He didn't believe I had truly stopped loving him, naively convinced I had only misunderstood his relationship with Crystal. He dismissed her, hired a male assistant, and every day bombarded me with calls and texts of repentance. I grew tired of the harassment, blocked him, and filed for divorce. When Ethan found out, he drank himself nearly to death and collapsed at my doorstep. His eyes were bloodshot when he saw me. Rachel, he begged, please don't divorce me. We can live separately. I'll win you back. I've never loved Crystal. In my whole life, I've only ever loved you. Why is it that people never cherish what they have, but once they lose it, they suddenly long for it? Sadly, he was still standing in that place, while I had already walked far beyond it. Ethan, I said coldly, do you remember what I told you the first time you gave me the silent treatment over Crystal? That whether it's emotional or physical, once you cross the line, divorce is the only option. Mr. West, I don't want you anymore. Since you refuse to agree to a divorce settlement, then we'll see each other in court. I paused, my lips curling. And since you're always saying Crystal is the one who suffers, let me give you a gift. That so-called gift was a piece of surveillance footage from our home. It was the day after my birthday, when our relationship had reached a deadlock. To make Ethan realize his mistake, I had moved into an apartment and sent Crystal to pack up some clothes. But the girl who used to smile so sweetly was nowhere to be seen in the video. Instead, her face was full of ridicule. Miss Grant, I really don't get it. How can you endure this? You'd rather sit alone in an empty house than get a divorce? If I divorce, I sneered back, it's because I decide to. A third party like you has no right to comment. Crystal only laughed. Don't you know, these days the one who isn't loved is the real mistress. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. What nonsense from the handbook of mistresses brainwashed you with that? A third party refers to someone outside the marriage, the one who intrudes, who forms an improper relationship with a married man or woman. I, Rachel Grant, married Ethan West in a grand wedding, received the blessings of family and friends, and hold a marriage certificate recognized by the law of this country. And you think you can strip me of that title with just one sentence? He doesn't love you. Who gave you that kind of confidence? Was it Ethan? Was it because you thought if he were ever on his deathbed, you'd be the one allowed to sign his surgical consent form? Or is it that if he died, you think you'd have the right to inherit his estate openly? I've never understood why women who covet another woman's husband always claim it's true love, then try to persuade the wife to divorce. If you want me to divorce, why not convince Ethan? As long as he says the word, I'll go to the registry that very same day. Or is it that under the guise of true love, what you're really doing is nothing more than cheap indulgence? Remember this. The reason you can still jump around in front of me today isn't because I'm afraid to deal with you, it's because you're not worth it. Crystal stood frozen, her back toward me, speechless. Then she fled in disgrace. That was the real Rachel Grant. Before, I had been blinded by Crystal's feigned weakness and had overlooked my own true strength. My eloquence had been honed long ago in round after round of college debate club matches. If I truly wanted to make someone squirm, I could do it with every word. After Crystal left, I broke down in tears. My expression hardened as I smashed every photo of Ethan and me in the house. In that moment, I knew we could never go back. Ethan finally agreed to a divorce settlement. To me, it was good news. After all, dragging things into court would be too disgraceful. I had already arranged the division of assets with professionals. Ethan had no objections. On the day we signed the divorce papers, Ethan apologized to me once more. I only smiled and waved a hand. You've said sorry too many times. I'm tired of hearing it. He gave a light, unburdened laugh. Then let me wish you a life where you'll never need to wrong yourself again. May you walk freely, treading flowers beneath your feet. As I stepped out of the civil office, divorce certificate in hand, the late afternoon sun spilled across the pavement, warm and dazzling. For the first time in a long time, I felt my shoulders lighten, as though the weight of years had finally slipped away. The whispers, the betrayals, the humiliation, they were all behind me now. Ethan had once been my whole world, the man I had vowed to love for life. But people change, love shifts, and promises fade. I realized too late that clinging to a man who no longer respected me was nothing but self-punishment. My father was right. The greatest love I could give was to myself. Crystal White could keep her illusions, and Ethan could keep his regrets. I would no longer be part of either of their stories. My story was mine alone to write. That evening, I returned to the Grant family home. My mother had prepared my favorite dishes, and my father poured me a glass of wine. Surrounded by warmth and familiarity, I finally understood. Love may bring joy, but family gives you roots. And my own strength would carry me the rest of the way. As the city lights flickered on outside the window, I smiled to myself. Marriage had not defeated me, it had taught me. Taught me when to fight, when to walk away, and above all, how to rise again. This was not an ending. It was only the beginning of the life I chose for myself. Epilogue. Ethan. I watched her walk out of my life with that thin piece of paper in her hand, the divorce certificate that marked the end of everything we once promised each other. The sunlight caught in her hair, and for a fleeting second, she looked just like the girl I had fallen in love with years ago, bright, fearless, untouchable. And then, she was gone. I thought love was something unshakable, something that could withstand my silence, my arrogance, my misplaced kindness towards someone else. I thought she would always wait for me, forgive me, bend for me. I was wrong. Rachel had given me chance after chance, more than I deserved. She had swallowed her pain in silence, endured humiliation in front of friends, and still believed in me longer than I had any right to expect. And what did I do? I broke her trust, mistook her dignity for pride, mistook her love for weakness. By the time I realized it, by the time I reached for her hand again, it was too late. Crystal was never the problem. I was. I let her cross the lines that should never have been crossed. I excused her tears while ignoring Rachel's. I told myself I was protecting the weak, but in truth, I was betraying the strongest person I had ever known. Now the home we built together is empty. The bed is cold, the walls echo with silence, and every corner reminds me of her laughter, her stubbornness, her love. People tell me time will dull the pain, but they don't understand. It isn't pain that haunts me most, it's regret. Rachel once asked me, "What if your love changes?" And I swore, never. Unless I die. But the truth is, it wasn't my love that died, it was hers. And that will be the wound I carry for the rest of my life.